What's up, my good peoples? Welcome to the Be Transformed podcast, where we're talking about ideas that stimulate wholesome thinking into identity, purpose, vision, and action. I am James Anderson, and today we're listening to a message from our BT community group. This is a group that meets twice a month online, and all these messages can be found on teambetransformed.com/community group. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. Yeah, so just keep going. That's the message for today. So we'll see you guys next week. No, so we've been talking about, like Albert said, we've been talking about creating momentum. We've been talking about, stepping into new territory. We've been, talking about doing things that are uncomfortable, and that stepping into the things that God's calling us into, and how those things can challenge our paradigm, and it can be extremely uncomfortable. And so talking about creating momentum where in places where you don't have momentum, and talking about the strength and effort it takes to get things moving, and how, the smallest obstacles can kind of bring everything to a halt, and you've got to muster up all that courage and all that faith to take the next step. Last week we were talking about taking steps of faith where, that where we're drawing outside the lines a little bit, but just the image of God telling Moses to step forward, and he steps into the water, and but the water's not parting, and God's like, hey man, take the next step, and he's like, okay, and then God's like, take the next step, and Moses is like, bro, the water's not parting. He's like, no, I'm gonna part it, just take the next step. That mental image of taking steps of faith whilst the outward circumstances don't seem to be changing. And there comes a time where you got to just keep going, right? Where, like, especially when you're taking these steps of faith and things aren't changing, you could start to question, are we going in the right direction? Like, should we keep going? I was thinking about the analogy of going on a hike. If you've ever gone to a new location, maybe you're in a different state or country or region or whatever, and you go somewhere you've never been before, and you go on a hiking trail. Sometimes when you first start out, it's new, it's exciting, and you're in the trees maybe, and you're hiking for a little while, but it's like, oh man, this is like all uphill. It's like it's a little more effort than you thought. And then all of a sudden you pop out of the trees, and now you're in full sun, and it's like the trail's not as pretty. It's hot, it's like it's taking more effort than you were kind of imagining. And you start to wonder, like, hey, is it all worth it? Like, is there like a waterfall at the end of this trail? Is there a pot of gold? Like, I don't know if there's actually anything worth it at the end of this trail to keep on going. Like, I wonder if we should turn back. And today is really all about how in times like these or times like those, like, you need to just keep going. There's been times where I've gone on a plane ride, and when you're at the airport, it's raining. So you got, dark gray clouds, right? There's no sun, and it's just pouring down rain. And you get into the plane, and the plane starts to take off. And, you're still in the rain, still under the clouds. But as the plane starts to lift off, right, the higher and higher you go, it's, at the beginning, you're still just in the rain under the clouds. But there comes a point in time where you end up in the clouds. And it's like the clouds could almost seem like it's a little bit worse because there's like zero visibility, right? At least in the rain, you could kind of see. But as soon as you got in the clouds, you can't see beyond the cloud that you're in. But it really doesn't take too long as you continue to ascend where you pop out of that dark gray cloud, and it is blue skies, white clouds, and the sun is out. It's like when you were down at the airport, you were underneath the storm. But it's like once you went through it you rose above it, and it's like that storm isn't happening high up in the sky. And it's a very interesting sight to see, is that you pop out of those clouds and bam, you can see forever. I was watching this Hobbit movie. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's connected to the Lord of the Rings. And there's these guys, and they got to go through this forest, and this forest is pretty crazy. It's crazy dense, like trees everywhere, big roots. The canopy is super high and super thick, so like there's no sunlight coming in from through the leaves of the tree. There's no wind, so there's no way to really gauge where you're going, right? It's pretty easy to get lost. And then on top of that, it was like I don't know, something crazy was going on in there, and so it was causing people to kind of get distracted, or like their minds would go sideways. They'd kind of have some illusions of different things that were going on there, and it became extremely hard to navigate the forest. And the journey goes on, and then one of the guys ends up, everybody's going a little loopy. They're walking in circles, right? They don't really know which way is what, and the longer they're in there, the more their minds are going sideways. And so one guy climbs up the trees and pops his head out of the top of the canopy. And as soon as he does that, he's hit with some fresh air. And it's like, it's like you can see it in his face that his mind like comes back to true, right? Like his mind gets reset. He's no longer hung up in the illusion that he was when he was down on the ground. And now he's got the fresh air and he can see. So he can see there's a big old lake. He can see the mountain that they're trying to get to. So he knows right where he is and where he needs to go. And this is, I think, at least if it's not for you, it's for me. But like, I feel like this is like kind of where we're at on the journey of really, stepping into the new territory, is that we're looking, this message is really, it's popping our heads out of the canopy. It's getting a hit of that fresh air. It's getting reset and recentered on the direction for us to keep on jamming. Because it's like, when it's hard to see, whether you're in the rain, in the thick of the clouds, you're under the canopy of the trees. Sometimes you want to question the decision you made to start the journey. Sometimes it's like, sometimes the smallest things and the smallest imaginings can get your mind going in a negative direction, and it can bring ideas of quitting, tapping out. And it's not the time to tap out, and it's definitely not the time to crap out, right? It's not the time to give up or to give in. It's not time to throw up our hands or go cry in the corner. It's we got to keep moving forward, right? It's in times like these, you don't want to overthink it, and you sure as heck don't want to overfeel it. You don't want to get distracted are we going in the right direction? Because the fact of the matter is, at some point, you get too deep, you get too far. And it's like, especially when we're talking about living on purpose and taking new territory and taking new steps, taking new actions, creating a new mentality, you get to the point where there is nothing to go back to. Like Egypt is not a place to go back to. It's like you've realized what it was, and it's not even an option. So it's like the only thing we can do is keep moving forward. I don't know if you guys ever heard this story, but it's called Burn the Ships. This is way back in the day. There was it might have been like a Spanish conquistador, but there was a commander and he had his troops, and they sailed from their homeland to another territory, and they were going to fight the people there and take over the territory. That was at least the mission. So they had to sail to get there. So once they get to shore, they get all their supplies off the boat, and then the commander takes everybody up the hill. And then he has everybody stop, and he says, hey, look back to the shoreline. And all the ships were on fire. He's like, listen, we're going to go and we're going to fight these people. We're either going to win or we're going to die, but there's no retreat. Right? Like the burning the ships is like this all-in 100% commitment is do or die. We're either going to make it or we're not, but there is no other alternative. And it's that single-mindedness that plays a massive role on what we become. In this book I'm reading, they said, one of the biggest contributors to failure is quitting when you have a temporary defeat, right? When it's like, oh, things got a little hard. Well, I tried and that didn't really work, or I've been working and I'm not really seeing anything. It's like one of the biggest contributors to failure is quitting because you have a temporary defeat, right? So like misinterpreting the situation. There's a story in that same book. There's a story of this guy. This is also way back in the day, maybe not quite as way back, not so way back in the day. There was the gold rush, and this guy was like convinced. He's like, dude, I'm gonna go out to Colorado. That's where we live. And he's like, I'm going to go strike it big. Everybody's finding gold. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to go find some gold. So he goes, he stakes out a claim, and he's got a pickaxe and a shovel. And he just starts going to work. And he actually finds some gold, right? He finds some ore, which is like gold encased in like other minerals. And so you have to do some processing to be able to get the gold out. Well, anyways, he finds some gold and he goes back home, gathers up all his family, gathers up some friends, and says, guys, listen, I'm out there where the gold is and I found some. I staked a claim. We are going to be rich. But listen, if we really want to get after this, we're going to need some machinery so that we can really mine this place. We got to really move some dirt. And if we do this, and we find a bunch of gold, man, we're going to make it big. And so, so the family and friends all get behind him. They invest some cash, some capital. And that guy and another guy go back out there. Bam. And they get after it. And they see this success, right? They get they said a car. They get an amount of ore. And they take it to go get processed, and they're like, bam, all we need is a couple more of these. We'll be able to pay back the investment of our family and our friends, and then we just be making money. And so they got this initial success, and they start digging, and dude, it's only dirt. They're digging, and it's only dirt. There's no ore, there's no gold, there's no nothing. They're digging. It's dirt. The days go by, the weeks go by. Ooh. It seems like they had tapped out that mine. They had tapped out that area, and they're like, frick, man, I don't know what else to do. So they tap out. They go to a nearby, in the book, he's called a junk man. And they go and they sell the equipment to that guy for a couple $100. And so those guys leave, and they're like, we still got to pay back our people, and we got to find another means to do that. And so they kind of move on with their lives. Well, meanwhile, back at the old junk pile, the guy who bought the equipment hires a mining engineer and has him come out to the mine. And, so the The new owner, runs the engineer through the problem, says, here's what these guys said, here's what happened. And the engineer's like, oh, these guys just didn't understand like what happens in a fault line. He's like, if they would have kept digging, he's like, the gold is just 3 feet from where they were digging. All you have to do is dig right there. You're going to catch back up with that vein of gold and be good to go. Dude, sure enough, the new owner dug 3 feet more and he found the vein of gold. And he pulled millions out of that mine. One of the biggest causes of failure is people quitting when they have temporary defeat, right? Like trying something and then it not working. There's the story of Thomas Edison and the light bulb. And it depends on who you talk to. But there was a lot of attempts that went into making the light bulb. We'll work with 1,000 attempts. But it took a considerable amount of tries to create something that had never been created before, to create something, that functioned in a more efficient way. But it's interesting. 1,000 attempts, dude, that's a lot of attempts. That's a lot of attempts. You get to a point, it seems, where at some point, it's like, does perseverance kind of run its course? It's like, you do 150 attempts and the thing isn't working. It's like, all right, okay, that's a lot of attempts. You get to 230, dude, that's a lot of attempts. 450, that's a lot of attempts, right? You got your colleagues, people walking by your office, they're like, bro, you made it yet? No, what attempts you have? 560. It's like, should you keep going? That's a lot of attempts, man. 740, that's a lot of days of putting things together, trying it out, and it not working. The thing you got to do, and the thing he did is like, if you do the same thing the same way, you're going to get the same results. So especially in this case, he's got a series of components. Well, it's like you can't just keep running the same test. It's like you gotta add, subtract, or rearrange, right? You got to create a different kind of series to see if you can get a different result. And this guy's getting after it over and over and over. 875 times. That's a lot of attempts. Attempt number 1,000. Light bulb lights up. Somebody asked him, they said, hey, that's a dumb question. Hey, how's it feel to have failed 999 times? Good answer. He's like, I didn't fail 999 times. I found 999 ways that a light bulb won't work. Success is had not by those who try and quit. Success is had by those who persevere until successful. Man, that takes some commitment to completion. It's easy, man, along the journey to get into those lulls where it's like it's hard to see. It's like, is it even worth it? Like, and is there even a reward at the end of this freaking trail? It's easy to want to lose sight. The Wright brothers, one of them was outside, or both of them was. They were outside, saw a bird soaring in the sky, and they're like, man, it has got to be possible to build some kind of machine that could allow a man to soar in the sky like that bird. Their father was a bishop of the church, and their father said that their pursuit was demonic. It says if God wanted man to fly, he would have gave him wings. Like the idea and the desire and the dream that they were marinating in challenged belief systems and it challenged paradigms. And it's easy to look back and think, okay, well, yeah, people were crazy and they said weird things, but it's like, but look at everything that aviation has done and how far it has come. And it's easy from right here, right now, it's easy after success to look back at those moments and overlook them. But when you're in the thick of it and you're in attempt 642 and somebody's like for the 100th time, hey, maybe you should give that up. It can be hard to keep going. It can be hard to remember what the mission is, what the goal is, where we're going and what we're doing. I'm reading in 2 Corinthians, and I was reading through some Paul's exploits. And so in 2 Corinthians 11, 21 through 29, it says, whatever anyone else dares to boast about, it's like I'm speaking as a fool, I also dare to boast about. Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they Abraham's descendants? So am I. Are they servants of Christ? He says, I'm out of my mind to be talking like this. He said, I am more. I have worked much harder, been in prison more frequently, been flogged more severely, been exposed to death again and again. 5 times I received from the Jews the 40 lashes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was pelted with stones. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and a day in the open sea. I've been constantly on the move. I've been in danger from rivers, in danger from bandits, in danger from my fellow Jews, in danger from Gentiles, in danger in the city, in danger in the country, in danger at sea, and in danger from false believers. I've labored and toiled and have often gone without sleep. I have known hunger and thirst and have often gone without food. I have been cold and naked. Besides everything else, I face daily the pressure of my concern for all the churches. Who is weak and I don't feel weak? Who is led into sin and I don't inwardly burn? You know, you read through that list, hot dang, that's somebody who's got a single-minded mission. Shipwrecked 3 times. I don't know, man. You get shipwrecked once. Do you go back on a ship? Like if if you got some purpose and you jump on an airplane and that plane crashes, did you get on another plane? Right? Maybe you're like, that was just a fluke. Bird ran into the engine. We came down, but we're okay. No big deal. You go, a couple years later, you jump on another plane. Boom, freaking thing lands in the ocean. You're on the water. You're stranded. Did you get on another plane? I don't know. This guy did. He said 5 times he received from the Jews the 40 lashes minus 1, right? 39 lashes. 40 was meant to you would die if you got whipped that many times. So we just minus 1, so you come right to the border of death. And it's like the whole point of that was to induce so much fear and the punishment be so high that you would never want to cross the line again. 5 times. I mean, at some point, right? You're like, hey, maybe we take a different approach. Maybe we tone down what we're doing. 5 times. I mean, you got to have some tenacity to end up in that situation 5 times, 3 times beaten with rods, freaking got stoned. They pulled him out of the city, stoned him. He's on the ground. Everybody else leaves. His people come around him. He stands up and he walks back into the city. I don't know if I walk back into that city, And I'm like, maybe it's better to stay the night out in the open than it is to go to go back into the city. But it's like that's a picture of commitment. It's a picture of focus. It's a picture of single-mindedness. You don't go through those kind of obstacles and waver, on your call and your mission. You go through that because there's those obstacles are the only way to get to the end destination, right? It was the only way to get to the different peoples. You had to go, you had to go across the water. You had to go across the jungle, whatever. In Luke 12:42-48, it says, who then is the faithful and wise manager, whom the master puts in charge of his servants to give them their food allowance at the proper time? It would be good for that servant, whom the master finds doing so when he returns. Truly I tell you, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. But suppose the servant says to himself, my master is taking a long time in coming. And he begins to beat the other servants, both men and women, and start to eat, drink, and get drunk. The master of that servant will come at a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he's not aware, and he will cut him in pieces. Whew. And assign him a place with the unbelievers. The servant who knows the master's will and does not get ready, or does not do what the master wants, will be beaten with many blows. But the one who does not know and does things deserving punishment will be beaten with few blows. From everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded, and from the one who has been entrusted with much, much will be asked. But it's like in those times, right, where you're in the thick gray clouds and you can't see beyond the clouds you're in. You're in the forest and you don't know which direction you've been walking for the past 6 hours. You get into these times, man, where it's like time and space, and it's like it's easy to lose sight of where you're going, what you're doing. It's easy to lose sight of commitment. It's easy to get hung up on small things. It's easy to make things up, right? To speculate certain kind of problems and want to quit, want to tap out, want to walk away from things that you've invested into and you're working in and whatever. It's easy, like, the picture of the movie in the Hobbits, right? Like there was illusions, like they were seeing things that weren't there. Their mind was just going sideways. It's like it's easy to get caught up in the fog of it all. And it's like in this case, it's like the master was gone, but he's like, man, like blessed is the one who is doing the work that he was given when the master returns, versus the person who forgot that the master was going to return and started living like he was the master. But that guy had no character. In James 1:2-4, right, we read this last time. It says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature, complete, lacking no good thing." Perseverance helps solidify focus, right? It's like it helps create maturity, right? So a more mature perspective, more mature actions, right? It's in running into obstacles and overcoming them, right? It's in focusing on the end mission regardless of the outward circumstances changing or not. Right? It's like all these things cause us to become who we're created to become. I found this passage in my notes. It sounds like Miles Monroe. But at any rate, it speaks to the season we're in. It says, "It might be noted that from the beginning, the Creator's instructions to the first man he placed in the Garden of Eden was not to take a job, but to work. The idea of work, as used in this context, is to become, which implies manifestation rather than activity. In other words, to work means to become and manifest all that you are on the inside. It means to release and expose your full potential through your gifts and talents. Simply put, you were created not to be employed, but to be deployed. The number one problem in our world is not unemployment, it's underdeployment. Right? He's not talking about whether or not it's okay to be employed like as a job. It's a state of mind. Being deployed is a person who lives on purpose. But he's talking about work is about becoming, right? It implies manifestation, right? To become and manifest all that you are on the inside. And that's this season that we're in. This season and the next one or two seasons, right? It's about the actions that we're taking now, right? The decisions that we're making, the ideas that the direction that God is leading us just in our individual lives. It's creating that maturity. It's developing like the completeness. It's qualifying us for what is next. The path that we are on, we have to walk through, right? It's like Israel needed to dispossess the people to be able to become the people who could possess the land. It was part of the qualification. It was part of the process. Was going to build the right mentality. It was going to build the right picture of who God is. It's going to build the right picture of who they are. The challenges were going to make them stronger. It was going to make them better. It was going to make them more qualified. And it was that whole mentality and reality was then going to help qualify them to actually possess the land. That's the season that we're in. Is that the things that we are being pushed out of our comfort zone. We are called to keep moving forward, right? We're taking new territory. All these things are creating in us the qualifications for the thing that will follow these next couple seasons. And it is vital that we become the people who are qualified for what is next, right? You have to become, and it's like, and in the process of becoming, in the process of moving forward, of taking these steps of faith, of continuing to just keep going, inside of that, we are becoming more and more free from the past, right? We said this year was the year of breakthrough and success, right? Where it's like, we're not bound by the past. So we need to stop thinking connected to the past. We need to stop projecting the past into our future, right? We can't take the old building blocks of our self-concept that maybe is built on failures or other people's bad interpretations of who we are. Like, we need new building blocks, right? We need to take these steps of faith. We need to find new victories, and these new victories need to become our new past. And now when we look back at our past, it's full of victories. And we say, no, man, I've got this challenge, but I'm going to overcome it because look what had just happened. My past proves that we are victorious, that we can achieve, that we can become, that we can grow. We're not held back by anything. And so as we continue to move forward, it's like freedom and great healing and restoration and transformation is a part of the process, right? In advancement, true growth comes greater freedom from all kinds of different things. There's this quote from Thomas Carlyle. This is in the book As a Man Thinketh. And it says, a man or woman with half a volition goes backwards and forwards and makes no way on the smoothest road. But with a whole volition, he will make progress on the roughest road, even if only a little wisdom is in it. Volition is the power of choosing or determining, right? It's the act of your will. It's the act of making a choice. So we could read this differently, right? So it says, a man who is double-minded, right? So like unsure, like, we could go this way. I don't know if we should, maybe we shouldn't, right? A person who's double-minded goes backwards and forwards and makes no way on the smoothest road. But a person who is single-minded, fixed on something specific, that person who is determined to achieve their goal will make progress on the roughest road, even if only a little wisdom is in it. You don't even have to have a good plan. You just got to have the will and commitment to take action. Success is not to those who just, give it a shot. Success is to those who persevere until successful. Making the airplane, man, took some attempts, took some risks, took like gaining a ton of knowledge, trying out some different things, right? Like going back to the drawing board, trying to understand different aspects. Making the light bulb, man, took some attempts. Learning what pieces just straight up didn't go together, or what series, what order they needed to be in. It took some attempts. It would have been easy. Attempt 642. That'd have been easy to walk out the door that day and never come back to that project. But it's to those who stick with it to the end. Excellence is a commitment to completion. Excellence is better than perfectionism. There's this story of a professor who worked at a university, and he had a class. It was like a photography class. And so at the beginning of the semester, he broke up the class into two groups. He said, all right, group A, at the end of the semester, you're going to be graded based upon one picture. So that one picture, it's going to be about the composition, the lighting, the coloring. It's all about that one picture. Group B, you guys are going to be graded on the quantity of pictures, right? So the more pictures you have, the higher grade you're going to have. Well, this experiment was very interesting because Group A, who had to produce like a high quality picture, got so distracted by what they were doing, the fact that it wasn't perfect, they had a hard time kind of completing something, right? Taking a picture, putting it back on the computer, editing it, right? They're like, that looks dumb. All the composition is weird. Maybe it's not, that's not perfect. Let's throw that one out. Go back, take a picture. No, that doesn't look right. That's not bad. So at the end of the year, at the end of the semester, those guys who turned in the pictures, like if they turned in a picture at all, wasn't that high of a quality. Were the people whose mission was quantity. These guys, their focus was different. And so the people who had quantity actually developed quality. So at the end of the semester, they actually had the best looking pictures because they weren't concerned about it being perfect. It was more just, let's go through the process. And the more they took pictures and edited them, the more they're like, oh, that's actually looking better. Oh, they're learning more skills. They're understanding the programs better. They're like, oh, they're seeing composition in a different way. Like, because they weren't so focused on being perfect and they were more focused on follow through. And that wasn't even necessarily the intention. It was just more, you just got to make a bunch of pictures. But because there was just the freedom to take the pictures, they actually grew in skill and ability. This audio program I'm listening to, he said, trying is failure with honors, right? It's like, well, we'll give it a shot, but, when it doesn't work, we're going to stop. It's like, well, you're guaranteed to fail. Versus the mentality of like doing it until, right? Doing it until successful. Like, I'm not just going to try it, I'm going to do it. We're going to reach this goal. We're going to work towards this thing. It's a totally different idea. It's a totally different mentality. And it creates a completely different reality. So here's a picture, right? Here's some ideas connected to unsuccessful people versus successful people. There's some interesting differences. They're not big differences by any means. They're small, but it creates totally different realities. Unsuccessful people are more concerned with activities that are comfortable. Don't be afraid if you relate to some of these. Successful people are more concerned with activities that create results. Unsuccessful people are more concerned with enjoyment and immediate gratification. What's comfortable now? Right? Oh, it's uncomfortable. Yeah, we'll do that tomorrow. Today, let's just take it easy. Successful people are more concerned with positive, long-term consequences of current behaviors. Successful people are always evaluating like my daily habits. Like, okay, so how I wake up, how I spend my mornings, how I spend my afternoons, how I spend my evenings. Like, we know that every day is building towards our future. So it's like, are the actions I'm taking today actually taking me where I want to go? Successful people are more concerned with activities and behaviors that take them where they want to go. Unsuccessful people are more interested in activities that are tension relieving, right? Always trying to we just want to make it. We just want to make it through the day. We just need to take it easy. Where successful people are more interested in activities that are goal achieving, right? Because they're trying to reach something, trying to become something. Unsuccessful people are influenced by defending where they are. Hey, look, man, you don't know what I've been through. You don't know where I came from. You don't know my circumstances. I'm here because of this. I learned all this, and this. I got worries and anxieties. This is where I am. That's why I'm here. This is just my lot in life. Unsuccessful people are influenced by defending where they are, where successful people are influenced by where they're going. They're like, hey, look, I'm trying to achieve this thing. So here's the books I'm reading. Here's the podcasts I'm listening to. Here's the ideas I'm marinating on. Here's the actions I'm taking on a daily basis to help me reach this goal. It's a different kind of mentality. It creates a different type of reality, different type of lifestyle. Check it. Buckle up. One person just about starts a project. Another person starts and finishes a project. One person almost completes a task, almost follows through to the end, almost does what they said they would do, almost shows up prepared. Another person finishes a task, follows through to the end, does what they said they would do, and shows up prepared. It really doesn't take it takes some effort, but it's not always as much effort to show up prepared as sometimes you might dread. It's not always that much more effort to just do what you said you would do than, not. It's like the two groups of people, it's not a big differentiator, right? It's like everybody's got the same capacity. Everybody's got the same ability. It's just a couple choices that you constantly make. Both groups of people have the same potential to become. The difference between these two lists is the successful people actually have a goal that they're trying to reach. It's that goal that pulls them forward. It's the goal that releases them from the past. And the picture that they have of the future is pulling them. It's demanding growth. It's demanding we grow in new knowledge, new actions, new activities, new behaviors, new habits. Where unsuccessful people don't have that picture. So then all you have is kind of like what's happening right now and what happened in the past. And so it's like, well, we're just trying to get through the day. We're just trying to take it easy. It's just like, yeah, we'll get to it tomorrow. Yeah, I know I said I'd get that done, but, whatever. Maybe next time, maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow's a new day, right? It's like they're just these basic, simple things that it's like, man, if we get into the mentality of there's something we're working towards, it's like that's where accomplishment is. That's where your potential is. It might be noted that from the beginning, the Creator's instructions to the first man he placed in the Garden of Eden was not to take a job, but to work. The idea of work, as used in this context, is to become, which implies manifestation rather than activity. In other words, to work means to become and manifest all that you are on the inside. It means to release and expose your full potential through your gifts and talents. Simply put, you were created not to be employed, but to be deployed. This is the mission. This is the season we're in. And so when it gets foggy and you're on that hike and you're like, is there really a pot of gold at the end of this? Is there something worthwhile at the end of this trail? Like, should we keep going or should we just go back? It's in times like these, my good peoples, where we have got to keep going. Guys, thanks so much for kicking it with us. Until next time, peace.